This is ridiculous. My mom sent me to wish Aunt Winifred a happy Christmas. To be honest, I hadn't seen her in 10 years and wouldn't recognize her if I tried. I went with 2 big boxes of cherries, and as soon as the door opened, I cheerfully exclaimed, "Happy Christmas, Aunt Winifred." Aunt Winifred beamed with joy. "Happy Christmas, dear. Come in and have some dinner." Smelling the delicious aroma wafting through the house, I happily followed her inside. The door on the right opened, and a handsome young man walked out. He still looked a bit sleepy, with his hands casually tucked in his pockets. I went up to him, hooked my arm around his, and gave him a few friendly pats on the back, grinning. "Aunt Winifred, your nephew's grown quite tall, hasn't he? He must be about 15 or 16, but he's already 6'3". The handsome lad froze. Aunt Winifred froze. My delayed reaction could have circled the globe twice, but I remained oblivious and continued cheerfully. "Where's your niece? Why hasn't she come out yet? We used to play so well together when we were little." Aunt Winifred's refined features cracked inch by inch. "Dear, I only have Osric. Mystery solved, folks." I walked into the wrong flat. Rubbing my hands together awkwardly, I stammered. "I'm terribly sorry, I must have misread the flat number." When people are embarrassed, they tend to blurt out the truth. I found myself saying, "I should have known my mum's lot couldn't produce a beauty like you." The lovely lady, no, not my aunt, smiled even more warmly. "What a charming young lady. What's your name, dear?" A male voice answered before I could. "Rosalie." The handsome lad's voice still carried a hint of sleepy languor and sensuality. "My junior," he said. He lowered his gaze to look at me, his face so stunningly beautiful it took my breath away. "I'm Osric Quillen from the finance department. Folks, if your rumored boyfriend whom you've never met before travels 2,000 miles to meet you in your hometown, would you be shocked? Or shocked? Or perhaps, shocked? I must say, praying to heaven and earth is nothing compared to praying to your own mother." My mum's incoming call had never been so welcome as it was at that moment, bringing tears to my eyes. "Rosalie! I told you to come to your aunt's house first. Where on earth have you been? It's bad enough that you've disappeared, but did you have to nick my cherries as well?" I looked at Osric Quillen's face, which bore an ambiguous smile, and lowered my voice, speaking stiffly. "Mom. I went to the wrong place. I ended up at number 28 next door." The call was abruptly ended from the other side. Using my mum's urgency as an excuse, I finally managed to leave the yard, with the beautiful aunt seeing me off all the way. My mum, whose maternal instincts had rarely been so strong, was standing a few steps away. Her eyes were filled with unmistakable delight as she walked towards me with open arms. Feeling honored by this unexpected affection, I opened my arms to reciprocate. How odd that she'd suddenly become so affectionate after such a short time apart. It was rather embarrassing. Then I watched in disbelief as she brushed past me and embraced the beautiful aunt behind me. "You wicked woman. You didn't even tell me you were back. How many years has it been since we last saw each other?" The 2 women linked arms and went back inside. The north wind howled, and I stood there, frozen like a wooden chicken. A scarf was wrapped around my neck, and a hand ruffled my hair. Osric Quillen leaned in slightly, his thin lips curving into a smile. "Come in, girlfriend." A bowl of bright red cherries sat before me, their vibrant color almost painful to look at. These two have such a connection. University classmates. After the long-winded pleasantries of our reunion, Winifred Sheffield turned her gaze back to my face. What a coincidence indeed, her son had been staring at me for half an hour as well. My mum, like Christopher Columbus discovering a new world, exclaimed, "This is Osric, isn't it? Do you have a girlfriend?" Osric Quillen's eyes lingered on my face with a meaningful look, causing my heart to skip a beat before he slowly replied, "No, I don't, Mrs. Thornton." The gleam in my mum's eyes made my heart sink. Ever since my cousin found a like-minded young talent and left for Stanford last year, the 21-year-old spinster had been simmering in hot water daily. Just yesterday morning, the burnt breakfast was blamed on my single status. As expected, my mom pulled Osric closer. You've just moved here this year and might not be familiar with the area, right? This is Winifred's daughter. Why don't you let her show you around? Mom. Aunt Gwendolyn. I tried to reason with her. Your Aunt Gwendolyn hasn't seen you in 10 years, another year won't make a difference. Go on. My mum countered with logic, winning this round decisively. On the desolate streets of Christmas Day, only Rosalie Thornton and Osric Quillen, two fools, were walking side by side in the cold wind. Actually, Rosalie didn't want to walk side by side, but no matter how fast she walked, she couldn't shake him off. Catching her breath, Rosalie suggested, "Shall we find a place to sit for a bit?" Osric nodded graciously. 3 minutes later, the two sat facing each other in KFC. Rosalie unconsciously traced circles on the table with her ring finger, deciding to face the bleak rumors head-on. I wasn't the one who sent you that love letter. Someone else used my name. Osric nodded slightly. I know. The rumor spreading around the university that I confessed to you first wasn't started by me either. I know. It was me. Good that you know. Rosalie's voice suddenly rose 8 octaves. Wait, what did you say? Osric slowly stirred his hot chocolate. I said. I spread the news that I pursued you first. Since you couldn't explain the confession clearly, I thought, why not let me be the initiator? Young ladies are more sensitive about their reputation, after all. Seeing Rosalie staring at him, he added. I have thicker skin. When the confession incident first occurred, Rosalie had denied it. But within a few days, someone traced the account ID address to their dormitory, and suddenly everyone was criticizing her for being two-faced. Osric was already the heartthrob of all the girls in the university, and with Rosalie as a living target, it became a frenzy for keyboard warriors. But the next day, a rumor spread from somewhere that Osric had pursued Rosalie first, and it escalated with embellishments, saying that Osric himself had personally confirmed it. Suddenly, it became a tale of a talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven, and this farce turned into a lover's playful drama. So, do you know that now the entire University of Tower Hamlets is saying we're boyfriend and girlfriend? Osric finished, looking particularly calm. Has it caused you trouble? Rosalie shook her head. No. You saved my life. Osric raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips. His eyes were very light, particularly cold when he wasn't smiling. But when he smiled, they suddenly filled with warmth, like pools of amber. So I'm your savior now? His tone was playful and intimate. Rosalie smiled too. Yes, I owe you a debt of gratitude. Osric drawled, his voice tinged with teasing. No need to repay. Just don't make me wander in the cold wind again. Rosalie couldn't help but laugh. Deal. I'll be your friend. Osric laughed too, his narrow eyes slightly narrowed, the smile on his face intriguing. But at that moment, Rosalie, in her naivety, only saw gentleness in his expression. I never imagined that while Osric Quillen and I were establishing our great friendship, my mum and Mrs. Rutherford would reach a perfect understanding. For the rest of the holiday, Osric's dad and mine became like neglected weeds in the garden. My mom and Mrs. Rutherford were together every day, their desire to meet more fervent than even Romeo and Juliet's. Osric and I were forced to spend our days together as well. You could say that, except for sleeping, Osric and I were in each other's company from dawn till dusk. Under the matchmaking efforts of the two ladies, our great friendship had elevated to a revolutionary camaraderie of kindred spirits. I finally couldn't take it anymore and pulled my mum aside one day. Look, I know you and Mrs. Rutherford are inseparable, but do you have to drag me into it? Can't you let this little bird spread her wings a bit? Little bird? More like a great eagle taking flight. My mum rolled her eyes at me. Just look at young Osric, has he complained even once? I retreated in defeat and turned to Osric. You're too agreeable. Now all the fire's aimed at me alone. Osric was truly a good sport, always ready to help out. He washed a bowl of cherries and brought them to my mom. Mrs. Sheffield, Rosalie and I are probably in your way while you chat with my mom. Why don't we? My mom quickly grabbed Osric's arm before he could finish. Oh, Osric dear, I've thought of you as half a son since before you were born. Now that I see you, I just can't bear to have you out of my sight. The rest of Osric's words were stuffed back in his mouth. He gave me a rather helpless glance. I smirked. Having crawled out of her belly myself, how could I not know what she was plotting? Half a son? She was hoping for Osric to become her whole son-in-law. Osric, the poor naive soul, knew nothing and was being led around by the nose. I couldn't help but look at Osric with a hint of pity. But as I took a closer look, I realized he was becoming more handsome by the minute. On the day of our return to university, I found myself, unsurprisingly, booked on the same train as Osric Quillen. My habit of falling asleep as soon as I board didn't fail me, so when the train arrived at its destination, I discovered my head had been resting against Osric's shoulder on one side. As for the other side, I quickly straightened up, mortified by the large damp patch I'd left on his shoulder. Osric, ever understanding, simply adjusted his backpack strap to cover it and said calmly, "Shall we go?" In the taxi, Osric gave the driver an address without hesitation. I was taken aback. Had my mom revealed our home details to her chosen son-in-law? Osric accompanied me all the way to the entrance of my building. I tried to shoo him away. This is fine, you can head off now. He was uncharacteristically stubborn. It's no trouble, I'm going this way anyway. I thought to myself, you're really not very good at lying, are you? If you want to see me home, just say so. Why pretend it's on your way? Reality hit me like a bolt of lightning, and it stung. Osric pushed my suitcase to the door of flat 1502 and stood up straight. He ruffled my hair gently and said in a soft voice, "See you later, Rosalie." My heart had barely begun to flutter when I saw Osric turn and insert a key into the lock of the neighboring flat, 1501. I grabbed his backpack strap with the agility of a cheetah. What's going on? A flicker of something passed through Osric's azure eyes, gone in an instant. A perfectly timed look of surprise crossed his handsome features. Didn't Winifred tell you? I've been having trouble sleeping lately, and she said she had a spare flat nearby that I could use. Spare? I was there when this flat was bought, and the paperwork clearly stated only one flat, 1502, where I live. How convenient that suddenly there's a spare flat available, right next door to mine. So this is what they were planning. It seems you didn't just give your chosen son-in-law your daughter's address. To secure your future son-in-law, you went ahead and bought a flat to move him in next door. Suppressing the roar of 1,000 angry dragons in my chest, I finally managed to force out a smile that looked more like a grimace. Of course, it seems everyone's having sleep problems these days, aren't they? Osric responded with a faint smile. Osric Quillen moved in across from me without a sound. So much so that after 2 busy days in my new flat, I completely forgot about it. When I stepped out of the lift with my hair unwashed for 2 days, wearing a dressing gown and carrying 2 large bags of rubbish, I came face to face with Osric Quillen, who looked dashing in his white tracksuit. I calmly wiped away the tear from the corner of my eye. Morning. Osric quite naturally abandoned his plan to enter the lift and followed me out. Just woken up? Yeah. Taking out the rubbish. Had breakfast? I yawned, not yet. Let's go together then. I stopped and looked at his forehead, still slightly damp with sweat. You should go up and change first. I'd rather not go out with an icicle. Joke aside, in this temperature, he'd freeze solid walking in the snow right after his morning run. Osric smiled, the headband giving him a touch of youthful exuberance. My mood unexpectedly brightened along with the curve of his lips. He ruffled my hair. Wait for me. I waited for him on the spot, accidentally catching a glimpse of myself in the glass window. The one who needed to change clothes was probably me. At least I should wash my hair. Osric came down quickly, donning a long black trench coat that accentuated his cool and elegant features. Let's go to that pub around the corner for some Scotch broth. The broth is especially flavorful. I've been craving it for ages, I said, almost salivating at the thought. Osric glanced at me, his expression tender. All right then. As I playfully stepped on my own shadow, I pondered, is this really what Osric is like? Gentle and patient, friendly yet proper. It's a shame I spent my first year at university with my nose buried in books, never taking the time to wonder about the personality of the infamous campus heartthrob. Just as I was about to sneak a peek at him, I froze, transfixed by our shadows on the ground. In the shadow, Osric was reaching out to tug at the cat ears on my beanie. I slowly turned my head, but his hand had already retreated. However, the lingering look in his eyes hadn't quite disappeared. I made a mental note, so, Osric likes cats. The steaming bowl of Scotch broth was placed before me, making my mouth water instantly. I eagerly reached for my spoon, but Osric Quillen caught my hand midair. Ignoring my longing glances at the soup, he pulled out a wet wipe from his pocket and carefully tore open the package. Starting from my palm and meticulously working his way to my fingertips, he spoke in a measured tone. You just touched the rubbish bin. Your hands are dirty. I made a mental note, germaphobe. He looked up and saw my dazed expression, his eyes suddenly darkening. He ruffled my hair and placed a spoon in my hand. Go on, eat up. I absent-mindedly dipped the spoon into the broth and took a sip. Is it good? Osric asked. Yes, it's delicious. As if. Why was it that after Osric Quillen wiped my hands, I couldn't even taste the Scotch broth I'd been craving? I found myself lost in a new round of contemplation. Rosalie? A hesitant female voice came from behind. I turned around. Another female voice raised in volume, I told you it was Rosalie, and you said it wasn't. This time, Osric turned his head with me. The sound of bowls and cutlery being knocked over rang out, followed by someone's gasp. Rosalie, are you and Osric really together? I raised an eyebrow. Osric? Her voice was discordant, exceptionally gentle yet unable to hide the turbulence beneath. The girl before us was beautiful, dressed impeccably, but unfortunately, her pale yellow coat was now stained with a large splash of vinegar, looking somewhat disheveled. I stared at her for a few seconds without expression, only to see her avert her gaze, her index finger tightly pinching the corner of her coat. I reached out and slipped my arm through Osric's, smiling sweetly. Yes, hasn't it spread like wildfire around the university? The confession was quite the spectacle. Agnes, didn't you know? Her face paled inch by inch with my movement, visibly trembling when she heard the word confession. Osric's body stiffened imperceptibly for a moment, but in the next second, he naturally took my outstretched hand in his palm. His voice was polite yet distant. Hello, I'm Rosalie's boyfriend. These are my roommates, I introduced in turn, Meredith, Crispin, and Agnes. Osric nodded in acknowledgement. Meredith and Crispin came forward to exchange a few pleasantries with me, the conversation remaining lukewarm and brief. During my first year at university, I had practically lived in the library, leaving early and returning late, so my relationship with my roommates wasn't particularly close. I glanced again at Agnes, who was still standing in place, but I hadn't expected it to reach the point of being set up. I nudged the soft flesh of Osric's palm with my knuckle. Shall we go? Osric stood up, wrapped my scarf around me, and very naturally covered my hand with his. Our fingers intertwined. As if we had done it a million times before. I pressed my eyelids to conceal the flutter in my heart and walked out of the restaurant with him. Inside, Agnes's face was as white as paper. Walking about 15 meters away, I looked down at my pajamas and suddenly burst into laughter. What's the matter? Osric asked. I gazed at Osric Quillen's blurry face through my tears. They thought. Halfway through my sentence, I remembered Meredith Sheffield and Crispin Thornton's expressions, and I couldn't help but explode into another fit of laughter. I laughed for a full 3 minutes. Osric stood quietly beside me, his eyes filled with warmth, showing no signs of impatience. I started speaking again, my voice still breathless. They thought we were living together, haha. Osric's expression finally changed. At that moment, he suppressed his smile, and an irrepressible arrogance crept into every feature of his face. The corner of his lips curved upwards, and an overwhelming presence washed over me. "Oh. Is that so?" he said. A strange thought suddenly crossed my mind. This must be the real Osric Quillen. Bloody hell, he's even more alluring now. That girl just now, was she the one who sent the love letter? I asked. My thoughts were immediately drawn away by his question. Most likely, I replied. Is there anything I can help with? The gentle and considerate Osric was back. I shook my head. I don't plan to do anything. Osric let out a soft and said nothing more. Instead, I couldn't help but ask. Aren't you going to ask me why? He smiled. You have your reasons for doing things. I just need to support you. No matter what. A strange impulse surged within me, and I blurted out. Osric replied without hesitation, no matter what. After several attempts at probing earlier, I could basically conclude that the incident must have been Agnes Milton's doing. And she liked Osric. But regardless of her reasons for doing this, I didn't care. I didn't want to waste my time and energy on these irrelevant people and things. There are too many better and more worthwhile things in this world waiting for me to pursue and explore. But having someone willing to stand behind you unconditionally is truly a delightful thing. Something seemed to sprout in my heart. Suddenly, I grabbed Osric's hand and started running wildly. The north wind was biting, sweeping across our brows and ears. But our chests were burning hot, pulsing through our limbs and veins. Later, I realized that at that moment, we were brimming with ambiguity, yet not quite lovers. The next day, classes officially began. Both Rosalie Thornton and Osric Quillen had busy schedules, their timetables packed to the brim. But unlike before, Rosalie no longer rushed to the library's study room early in the morning and late at night. Instead, she and Osric shared opposite corners of the desk in her living room each day. Rosalie rubbed her slightly sore eyes and looked up, only to meet an intense gaze. Osric was leaning against the edge of the desk, silently watching her. She wondered how long he had been staring. A faint light reflected in his pale eyes. Are you hungry? Osric asked. Rosalie patted her stomach. A bit. Fancy some pasta? Thinking he meant takeaway, Rosalie casually replied, sure. Osric got up and left the room, returning a minute later with a bag. Rosalie watched as he walked straight to the kitchen, raising an eyebrow involuntarily. She leaned against the kitchen doorframe, observing as he expertly drained the pasta and diced tomatoes. Osric's hands were long and beautiful, making even holding a spatula a pleasing sight. Blimey, this man was bewitching at every turn. For the first time, Rosalie noticed 2 faint dimples on his face, barely visible. She lowered her gaze, and his shadow fell crookedly on the table surface, as if split in 2. In the shadow, his ear was just touching her lips. The atmosphere was intimate and enticing. It was all too easy to be enchanted by such a mood. A string suddenly snapped in her mind, and she grabbed his hand. He looked up, slightly startled, as she leaned in and kissed him. Both their hearts were racing wildly. The kiss was brief, neither deepening it. Rosalie, clutching her rapidly beating heart, jumped off the table and fled to her room. I've been avoiding Osric Quillen since that night. Heavens, what possessed me to lose my senses and forcefully kiss him? I cover my face in shame. Osric, he probably doesn't want to see me either. Why else would he be leaving earlier and returning later than usual? We live across the hall from each other, yet we haven't crossed paths once in the past fortnight. Rumors of our breakup spread quickly through the University of Tower Hamlets. We were once the inseparable campus couple, now seen apart. I finally saw Osric again after 2 weeks in our shared elective course. Having stayed up too late reading the night before, I arrived at the classroom just as the lecture was about to begin. I glanced around the front rows, only to find a single vacant seat in the third row from the back, on the far right. In that quick scan, I spotted Osric sitting in the back as well. He always stood out in a crowd. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, although that seat was near him, it wasn't in the same row or column. As I made my way up the steps to the back, the lad with thick eyebrows sitting next to Osric swiftly grabbed his book and dashed to the seat I had spotted earlier. He smirked at me as he passed by. Osric sat there quietly, sunlight streaming through the window, caressing this godlike young man. His gaze never left my face, calm and composed. I suddenly turned to face the lad, standing before him. Go back. He looked bewildered. What's the problem, sis? I said, go back. I cut him off. The professor had just entered the classroom. Seeing my resolute stance, making it clear I wouldn't budge until he moved, he reluctantly returned to his original seat. I barely heard a word of that lecture. Seeing Osric again so suddenly unleashed a torrent of emotions I had been suppressing. I realized how much I had missed him. Scenes from our time together flashed through my mind. Without my noticing, he had become an integral part of every aspect of my life. His abrupt absence left me feeling as though a piece of my flesh had been torn away, aching and raw. I realized then. I fancied him. I hadn't noticed when the professor left. It wasn't until the classroom erupted with whistles and cheers that I snapped back to reality. Following everyone's gaze, I saw a girl standing in the empty space in front of Osric Quillen's desk. Her black fitted wool coat accentuated her lovely figure, and her makeup was clearly done with care. It was Agnes Milton. Her gaze slid over me as if by accident, landing on Osric. Osric. I've been sitting behind you this whole time. Why aren't you and Rosalie sitting together? Osric remained slouched in his chair, looking rather lazy. He didn't even lift his face, as if the person in front of him was thin air. With the whole class watching, Agnes seemed a bit flustered by Osric's blatant disregard. Her voice grew urgent. Is it true what they're saying, that you and Rosalie have broken up? If so, she bit her lip, might I have a chance? My hand on the desk suddenly clenched. Osric finally looked up at her, his expression colder than I'd ever seen, his eyes even tinged with a hint of anger. No. Agnes froze for a moment. Osric stood up, looking down at her. I said, you don't have a chance. Osric shifted slightly, his gaze falling on me. I instinctively met his eyes, his long lashes catching the sunlight, making his eye color appear even lighter. She's in a mood. I'm trying to coax her. Osric's voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached the ears of everyone present. He didn't respond directly, yet every word was dripping with intimacy. The surrounding cheers grew even louder than before. Agnes's face turned bright red, and she finally ran out the door. As the crowd gradually dispersed, Osric walked to my side. Rosalie, I've been busy preparing for the project these past few days. Indeed, there were dark circles under his eyes, and he looked much more tired than usual. His voice grew softer. I rather miss that desk at your place. I looked at his softened features and smiled gently. His slightly curled hand finally relaxed, ruffling my hair before picking up my bag and slinging it over his shoulder. Let's go home. I gazed at his tall figure, lost in thought. Suddenly, I understood something. He was like the moon in the clouds. Yet he reserved all his good temper for me. Gentle and indulgent. The walk from the lecture hall to my flat isn't too long or too short. If you take the side gate, it's less than 20 minutes. Osric Quillen still kept his pace slow, walking unhurriedly beside me. His hands were tucked in his pockets, exuding a clean cut and cool aura. Yet every time he looked at me, those crystal-clear eyes inexplicably warmed. I recalled a faded memory of my mom, rarely serious, her voice tinged with laughter. "Silly girl, when you truly meet someone you like, your only thought will be, I want to be with him. No more hesitation." It turns out it's true. I unconsciously bit my lower lip, about to say something. Then my phone rang. My mom's call came as abruptly as ever. "Rosalie, you don't have lectures at noon, right? I ordered a sofa last month, it's absolutely gorgeous. It should be arriving about now. I gave them your number, remember to receive it." Before I could utter a word, she had already hung up. I hadn't even processed this when the next call came in. "Miss Thornton?" The voice on the other end sounded uncertain. I responded with a slightly exasperated yes, and they continued. "Your furniture is downstairs at your flat. Would it be convenient for you to sign for it?" "Yes, thank you. I'll be right there." By the time the delivery men had helped me move out the old sofa and position the new one, it was already 1:30. I glanced at my watch, feeling a bit frustrated. I had a lecture at 2, and there wasn't even time for lunch now. Osric, who had been helping the delivery men all along, had disappeared at some point. I grabbed a bottle of milk, ready to head out, when I saw Osric step into the entryway. "Where did you go?" "Just to buy something." He had afternoon lectures too, so I didn't say anything more as we hurried towards the lecture hall together. Our afternoon lectures weren't in the same place. As we parted ways at the science building, he called out to me. He pulled something warm and steaming from his jacket pocket and placed it in my palm. It was a sandwich. "Have a bite before class, it's not good for your stomach to be empty." The warmth from the sandwich spread from my fingertips all the way to my heart. Monday classes were always particularly hectic. It wasn't until I finally had a moment to breathe that I realized I hadn't properly spoken to Osric all afternoon. Let alone, confess my feelings? I felt a bit melancholy as I went to fill my water bottle at the dispenser, only to be met with a pair of beady little eyes staring back at me. As car headlights flashed by outside, I bolted out the door as if fleeing a disaster. Osric opened the door, likely not even having seen me clearly before I had already dashed behind him, urgently pleading. "Quick, shut the door, shut the door." He closed the door, bewildered, and turned to see me in a state of panic. I spoke quickly and anxiously, my words coming out in fragments. "Moving sofa, door open, mouse got in." A hint of amusement crept into Osric's eyes, his almond-shaped gaze twinkling with mirth. My face began to heat up. What could I do? I was terrified of mice. "It's quite late, I doubt anyone will come knocking," he said. "Why don't you stay here tonight? I'll call someone to catch it tomorrow." It was only then that I noticed he was wearing his pajamas. Black silk pajamas that accentuated the milky white of his neck, revealing a few sensuous vertebrae. I swallowed hard. So alluring. I quickly averted my gaze. "All right. Shall I get you some clothes then?" I stopped him. "No, don't go in there." He chuckled, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly with the sound. "Okay. You can wear my pajamas then." As I showered, I thought to myself. This was too embarrassing, not the right time to discuss feelings. A knock came at the bathroom door, followed by Osric's clear voice. "I've left the pajamas in a basket by the door. Don't forget to grab them." Interrupted from my thoughts, I replied, "Okay." The pajamas felt a bit odd. I looked inside and saw, to my horror, a pack of disposable knickers placed atop the pajamas. Women's style, no less. Bloody hell. The tips of my ears burned crimson, and I spent half an eternity in the bathroom trying to cool down to no avail. His pajamas were frighteningly long on me. I had to roll up the trouser legs 4 or 5 times, and they still reached my ankles. I opened the bathroom door, clutching the loose waistband, ready to dash to the bedroom. Osric called out to me from a few steps away. I've warmed some milk for you. Have a drink before bed, yeah? Without turning back, I replied, no need. I'm off to sleep. As if I'd let you see me with my face as red as a baboon's behind, dressed like a beggar. Just before the door closed, I thought I heard a soft chuckle carried away by the breeze. I'm certain Osric Quillen had never slept in the guest room before. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, lying on this bed gave me the illusion of an intimate closeness with Osric. I pulled the duvet over my head. I wondered what expression Osric had worn earlier when he went to buy women's underwear for me. Could he have maintained his usual composure? My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, and it wasn't until the early hours that I finally drifted off into a fitful sleep. When I woke up, it was nearly 11 o'clock. Osric was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, the sunlight bathing him in a warm glow, his dark hair shimmering. It made me want to reach out and touch it. Awake? He asked, turning at the sound of movement, his expression gentle, his eyes seemingly carrying the warmth of the sunlight. In that moment, I almost blurted out, Osric, let's be together. He strode towards the kitchen. I've been keeping some porridge warm for you. Have some first. Osric. I called out to him. Yes, he turned to look at me, patient as always. No matter when I called him, he would set aside whatever he was doing and give me his full, gentle attention. Such a wonderful Osric. Wait a little longer. Prepare yourself better. I told myself. I smiled, it's nothing. I'm just hungry. The pest control came by this morning and caught the rodent, he said. I've called for a cleaning service. They're disinfecting the place now. It should be done soon. I nodded. Osric hesitated for a moment, then brought over a small cage from the entryway. This rodent, it seems to be someone's pet. I looked down and once again met those beady eyes, nearly knocking over my bowl in surprise. Osric took a cherry from the fruit bowl on the table and placed it in the cage. The little creature reached out with its tiny paws, grabbed the bright red fruit, and began to nibble. It appears to be a guinea pig, a type of pet rodent, Osric explained. Seeing it in broad daylight for the second time, I finally got a clear look at its true appearance. Last night, when I first saw those beady eyes, I was too frightened to notice, but it was actually quite cute. Brown and white, plump, and clean-looking, it indeed seemed well cared for. This rodent must have escaped from someone's home and slipped in when my door was left open while moving the sofa. Osric and I exchanged glances, both of us trying to suppress a smile. There was a knock at the door. Osric Quillen opened it, and I could see two middle-aged women talking to him through the gap. Osric handed them some money and gave each a box of cherries before bidding them farewell and closing the door. Have they finished cleaning? I asked, my words slightly muffled as I popped a cherry into my mouth. Osric walked over to me, his tall frame immediately creating a sense of pressure as he loomed above me. His eyes flickered with emotion, and after a moment, he replied, yes. I wiped my hands with a napkin and stood up. I'll be off then. Instead of moving aside, Osric took another step forward. He was now so close we were almost touching. My gaze flickered, a movement as slight as a breath or a heartbeat. You're blocking my way, I said. Osric gently brushed his fingertip across the corner of my mouth. His pale finger came away with a smear of red. Blast. I'd forgotten to wipe my mouth. Just as I was about to raise my hand to my lips, Osric's voice, slightly husky, broke the silence. Can you stay? My hand froze midair as his cool fingers intertwined with mine. Starting from the crimson-stained fingertip, he slowly laced his fingers through mine. You can have the master bedroom or the guest room. Your choice. The tips of his ears had turned pink, but his eyes were dark, brimming with countless unspoken emotions. I said I'd respect whatever you do, but I've realized. I was being overconfident. You want to avoid me, and I can't bear it. You want to leave, and I don't want to let you go. His voice grew softer, but the light in his eyes burned brighter. I met his gaze, my voice equally soft. All right. I had never seen Osric's emotions so openly displayed before. His gaze was almost fierce as he stared at me, the hint of pride in his features melting into the deep affection of a young man in love. Then, gradually, his eyes began to redden. He pulled me into his embrace, resting his chin on my shoulder. His voice was low, almost childishly pleading. "Will you give me a proper title then?" My gaze fell on the window beyond. A leaf was caught by the wind, swirling upwards. I heard my own voice, soft and light, yet unmistakably firm. "All right. Boyfriend." The guinea pig's owner was indeed very anxious. Several lost guinea pig posters were plastered in the lift. When Osric Quillen and I returned the guinea pig, the owner thanked us profusely. "I should be the one thanking you," Osric smiled meaningfully. "Your harmless little rodent has brought a kitten into my arms." I blushed furiously beside him, pinching his hand hard. He paid no mind, enveloping my hand in his palm. The guinea pig's owner looked utterly bewildered. Judging by his expression as he closed the door, the poor chap probably wanted nothing more than to chase away this lovey-dovey couple showing up at his doorstep early in the morning. Osric was indeed acting a bit odd. He seemed intent on declaring to the whole world that I was his girlfriend. That afternoon, I found myself attending his dormitory gathering. As I entered the private room and saw 19 blokes facing me, I thought, something's not quite right here. The lads all flashed their pearly whites. So this was how dormitory gatherings worked. I told you, young lovers' quarrels never last more than 2 weeks. One of the blokes turned to the others and bellowed, "Pay up, losers." In the next moment, 19 100-pound notes appeared in his hand. He gleefully stuffed the money into his pocket. "See, sister-in-law? Didn't I say I know our Osric best? Look how he dotes on you, how could he last even 2 weeks?" I remembered him now, the bloke who'd tried to nick my seat in the lecture hall that day. Grateful that I'd brought him this windfall, he seemed eager to spill everything he knew. "Sister-in-law, you've no idea. When the rumor about your confession spread around uni, Osric immediately had us tell everyone it was him who pursued you first." Another of Osric's roommates chimed in. "Oh, don't remind me." We proud men of Tower Hamlets had to go around telling everyone. Utterly mortifying. I glanced at Osric in surprise. So this was what he meant by protecting a girl's reputation? To go to such lengths for a girl he'd never even met? That's not all. Last term during course selection, Osric was asking everyone for your elective timetable. In the end, my girlfriend helped get it for him. Once he got that timetable, Osric was like a man possessed. He wanted to sign up for every elective you'd chosen. Another lad eagerly chimed in. "Who'd have thought you two were either psychic or just meant to be?" Osric had already taken almost all the electives you chose last year. He couldn't wait to sign up for that one psychology course left. We all reckoned Osric would be raring to go after Christmas, but who knew? In just those few weeks over the holidays, he'd already won you over. I turned to Osric beside me with a wry smile. He was radiating an icy aura, looking utterly unapproachable. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot, eh? The gathering didn't wrap up until midnight. As soon as we got through my front door, I pinned Osric against it, poking his chest. "Tell me, have you been secretly in love with me for ages?" Osric looked down at me, a glimmer passing through his eyes. "Yes." His candor caught me off guard. I faltered. "Since when?" The man before me gazed at me intensely. In a blink, our positions were reversed and I found myself firmly pressed against the wall. His face descended without warning, those ruby lips slowly filling my vision. The coolness at my back contrasted sharply with the heat radiating from his body, making me feel as though I was simultaneously in an ice cave and a raging inferno. Even as his kiss made me melt into his embrace, I still hadn't gotten my answer. But did it really matter? In the harsh winter of East London, I'd found someone blazing and brilliant. And right now, that someone was holding me close. My mum found out about Osric and me over the phone. It was 3 days after Osric and I had made our relationship official. Though I knew this was what Mrs. Sheffield had hoped for, I couldn't help feeling a bit nervous for some reason. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Mrs. Sheffield's haughty voice came through again. "You two would never have got together if I hadn't thrown money at it." I stood frozen, holding the phone. Osric calmly took the receiver from me. "Mom, you're quite right about that.